Hi, so this is my first attempt at an oil painting, and I'm working on this underpainting that I created a couple of days ago. These are my materials. I've got a palette, some brushes, some palette knives, and some oil medium to mix with as well. So, yeah, this is my very first attempt, so please bear with me whilst I work through this process. I started off by just getting some paint on there. I had no idea what I was doing really, so just had a go with the palette knife, getting some of that thick paint on there. It's a lovely texture, this paint. So I'm using a water soluble oil colour. The reason I went with water soluble was because I thought it might be easier to work with as a beginner, and at least then I can very easily wash the brushes in water without having to use any sort of solvents or terps or anything like that. They don't smell as strong as standard oil paints as well, so I don't have to worry so much about fumes or any, strong smells in the house. So that makes things a lot easier. So what I'm doing here is just basically trying to work work the paint onto the canvas the best way I can, trying to just play around with the brushes, play around with the fluidity of the oil and just get it where I want it. I definitely enjoyed the flow of oils. The feel of it is very different to what I'm used to working with acrylic paint. It felt very nice, very soft, easy to get onto the canvas and work with it. I do have the oil medium to mix with the paint, but I didn't really use it that much. I very rarely used it because the paint worked so nicely without it. So I've worked with acrylic for, wow, God, probably about 20 years, if not longer. And this is the very first time I've ever worked with oil paints. So it's very, very different to acrylic, feels very different. It's a whole different way of working. I really enjoyed it, but I did struggle with it. So it's going to take me a long time to get used to. One thing I found difficult was layering the paint without pulling it off the canvas by mistake. You don't have that problem with acrylic paints. It's very much once you put it on, it's there. However, I think that you could use that to your benefit if you want to scrape things back. I work quite a lot with layers and creating textures, and I think oils might be quite good for that, that you can scrape back into it and pull the paint off, and the background will then appear. So that's definitely something I want to work on. I also, I think, need to maybe invest in some more brushes. I only have a few brushes that are specifically for oils. I do have lots of different brushes for acrylic paint, but I think the material that's been used to create those brushes isn't quite right and just doesn't hold the paint very well. So I do need to get some more, especially when I start doing some of the finer detail around the beak and the eye. I do struggle with the brushes that I have, so I need to invest in some new brushes in the future. So as you can see, I'm just working into the paint, trying to get some of those like feathery types of textures with the brush. I did get it a little bit, but not quite as much as I would get from using acrylic. Obviously, it's not the same feel. It doesn't move in the same way. So I was trying to work through that to see what I could do and how I could create those textures. Did find it very difficult, but I also really enjoyed it at the same time. It's always fun trying a new skill, trying to do something different. One thing I find with oils is the colours just look so much richer. I don't think this video really gives it the you can't really see the colour as well in this video, but there is a lot of really nice blue tones. in this paint, so I mixed up some really nice deep blues with the blacks, and it showed up a really nice rich colour. So here I am now adding in some lighter areas, some highlights. Again, I found this quite difficult to do without pulling away too much of the black paint, because obviously the darker paints are still very wet, so I found it difficult to add the lighter areas on top, or next to those areas, without it blending too much. I'm definitely not used to that. As I've said, acrylic dries so quick, so you can very easily layer on top of it without it mixing. So I need to work on that, need to practice how to paint that way. I do remember watching Bob Ross, and he used to always say fat over thin, fat over thin. I kept trying to do that, but I'm not really sure I was doing it very well. So I definitely need to practice that a bit more. Adding the highlights is definitely my favourite part, when you start seeing the end of the painting and you're seeing the detail, and you can just add those final little bits that just make the painting pop. That's definitely my most enjoyable part of creating paintings. I think I'll definitely continue practicing with oils. I've definitely enjoyed doing this. They have a lovely feel and a lovely texture, and they are really nice to work with. But I think it's just going to take me some time and some patience. I'm used to working very quickly with acrylic paints. It dries really quickly. You can add lots of layers in a very short space of time. Can't do that with oils. So I think I'm going to have to plan a lot better. Maybe think about if I'm working on a series of paintings, plan ahead of, how many I can work on at the same time, to give them enough time to dry. And whilst I'm waiting for those to dry, can I work on some others, and working back and forth? That's going to take some organising, but I definitely can do it. I I think I'm also excited to try play around with how oils are very wet, and see how I can scrape back, or I can, smear or almost destroy the painting that I've created, and see what happens. That's quite exciting. So lots that I can play with and see how it works. I've been painting a very long time, and I'm still finding things, still learning new things. It never ever gets boring, ever. There's just so much you can do, so many things you can explore. Think of all the vast different things you could paint, all the different subjects. And yet I always paint the same things. But you do get into a bit of a comfort, with certain things. But I do I do every so often stop and try and explore something new, something exciting. And then you tend to come back to the same things every now and then, just because they are like, something familiar, something that is comforting and makes you feel good, and it's, a nice, not like coming home. I think that's one thing I always do when I paint crows and ravens. It's like coming home, and I've painted them for a long time now. I will definitely have a think about moving on to something new though, because I've been painting them for the last few years now, so I need to move on to a new subject. But that's because I don't know what that's going to be, and that's the whole point of this whole practice of exploring different things to see what you might find. So back to the painting, I'm just adding some pops of blue here, some little highlights, just getting to the last little bits, really, the last little nitty gritty bits of the painting. It's almost done. I'm moving on to the feet and the legs. I hate doing this part of this bird. I've done it for so many years, and I've just never found a way to do it that's easy. So I tend to just avoid them, or I'll position the composition of it so I don't have to do them. But yeah, I can't stand doing crow's legs and the little talons. They're just so awkward, and sometimes they just never look quite right. So I'm just popping some little highlights in for the claws, just keeping it simple. I don't need to spend lots of time on this. This is just a practice at the end of the day, so it doesn't need to be perfect anyway. And I'm probably just gonna scrape back over this and destroy it at some point. Might have to do another video on that maybe. I hope you've enjoyed my little rambles about painting. If you'd like to find out a bit more about me and my art and what I do, then you can check out my website. I'll pop the link just underneath this video. And you can also follow me on Instagram. I'm at Callie A Art on there if you want to have a look and keep up to date with everything that I'm doing. I'm obviously going to be exploring oil painting for some time, so if you want to keep following me on that journey, then make sure you subscribe to this channel and then you can keep up to date with everything I'm doing. Um, please comment, please let me know what you think. It'd be good to hear from those of you that are watching my videos to see what your thoughts are on what I'm doing. I would love some criticism if you're an oil painter and you've, done it a long time. I haven't got a clue what I'm doing, so maybe some tips would be useful. I've been watching a lot of YouTube videos myself on oil painting, so there's some very good people out there. So I will keep using those free resources that we've got here on YouTube. As you can see here, I am massively struggling with this eye. Jackdaw eyes are just weird because they're white. They just look so unnatural. Crow's eyes are so much easier because they're like all black and it's so much easier just to create like a subtle sort of sheen. Whereas with the jackdaw eyes, because they're white, it's just, yeah, it just looks really awkward and I just could never get it right. I think I just give up at some point, but it's fine. It's just a practice, it doesn't matter. We're almost done, just doing some final little touches. I think at this point, this is where I start to get a little bit, what's the word? I go over the top a bit and just overpaint, and I should just step away and just leave it, but I can't help it. I think a lot of artists do that though. It's very common, just overworking a painting. But you start to sort of, you keep looking at certain things and they just don't look right, and you're not sure why. Okay, step away now. It's done. The beak is fine. I need to walk away. Obviously, I don't. I just keep going. Okay, now we're done. So we're just doing the background. I quite liked the orange from the burnt sienna, so I just made it a bit thicker and a bit darker. I think it was a nice sort of contrast to the blues in the bird and the dark and obviously the blacks. Definitely need to work out a better way to try and not show the brush strokes though, because I don't think that's a good look. So I'll have to have a look at that to see if there's any easier ways to do that. Okay, and there we have it. There's the final painting. I hope you enjoyed watching this. Please let me know what you think. I'll be doing some more videos following my journey whilst I get to grips with oil paint. Hopefully it's not too bad. I don't think it's too bad. I think it's a good first attempt, if I don't say so myself. But thanks again for watching. and I'll see you next time.